Hello everyone, I am Mrudula and today's topic is the introduction to clinical data management. So let's start to the today's topic. The clinical data management is a critical process in clinical research which leads to the generation of high quality, reliable and statistically sound data from the clinical trials. Clinical data management ensures collection, integrity and availability of data at appropriate quality and the cost. It also supports the conduct, management, and analysis of studies across the spectrum of clinical research as defined by the National Institute of Health. The ultimate goal of CDM is to ensure that conclusions drawn from research are well supported by the data. Achieving this goal protects public health and increases confidence in market therapeutics. Now we see the prerequisites in the CDM. First one is the standard operating procedure. Standard operating procedure describes the process to be followed in conducting data management activities and support the obligation to follow applicable laws and the guidelines. For example, ICH GCP and 21 CFR Part 11 in the conduct of data management activities. Then second is the data management plan. The data management plan describes the activities to be conducted in the course of processing data. Key topics to cover includes SOPs to be followed, then the clinical data management system to be used, then description of data sources, data handling processes, data transfer format and process, and the quality control procedure. Then the next is case report form design. The case report form is the data collection tool for the clinical trial and can be a paper or electronic. Paper CRF will be printed, often using no carbon required paper, and shipped to the investigative sites conducting the clinical trial for completion, after which they are couriered back to the data management. Electronic CRFs enable data to be typed and directly into the fields using a computer and transmitted electronically to the data management. Design of CRFs needs to take into account the information required to be collected by the clinical trial protocol and intended to be included in a statistical analysis. Where available, standard CRF pages may be reused for collection of data which is common across most clinical trials. For example, subject demographics. Apart from CRF design, electrical trial design also included edit check programming. Edit checks are used to fire query message when discrepant data is entered to map certain data points from one CRF to the other. To calculate certain fields like subjects, age, BMI, etc., edit checks help the investigator to enter the right data right at the moment data is entered and also help in increasing the quality of the clinical trial data. Then the database design and build. For a clinical trial utilizing an electronic CRF, then database design and CRF design are closely linked. The electronic CRF enables entry of data into underlying relational database. For a clinical trial utilizing a paper CRF, the relational database is built separately. In both cases, the relational database allows entry of all data captured on the case report form. Now the next is the data entry. When an electronic CRF is in use, data entry is carried out at the investigative site where the clinical trial is conducted by site staff who have been granted appropriate access to do so. When using a paper CRF, the pages are entered by the data entry operators. Best practice is for a first pass data entry to be completed, followed by a second pass or verification step by an independent operator. Any problem between the first and second pass may be resolved such that the data entered is a true reflection of the recorded on the CRF. Where the operator is unable to read the entry, the clinical data management should be noticed so that the entry may be clarified with the person who completed the CRF. Then the data validation. Data validation is the application of validation rules to the data. For electronic CRFs, the validation rules may be applied in real time at the point of entry. Offline validation may still be required. Example for cross checks between data types. Then data analysis. Samples collected during a clinical trial may be sent to the single central laboratory for analysis. The clinical data manager liaises with the central laboratory and agrees data formats and transfer schedules in data transfer agreement. The sample collection date and time may be reconciled against the CRF to ensure that all samples collected have been analyzed. Data cleanup, where data entered does not pass validation rules, then a data query may be issued to the investigative site where the clinical trial is conducted to request clarification of the entry. Data queries must not be leading. For electronic CRFs, only the site staff with appropriate access may modify data entries. For paper CRFs, the clinical data manager applies the data query response to the database, and a copy of the data query is retained at the investigative site. When an item or variable has an error or a query raised against it, it is said to have a discrepancy or query. Now the next is the data reporting. Analysis of clinical, the CRFs collect adverse event reported during the conduct of the clinical trial. However, there is a separate process which ensures that serious adverse events are reported quickly. The clinical data manager must ensure the data is reconciled between these processes. Then the data representation. When the subject is required to record the data, then a diary is provided for completion. Data management of this data requires a different approach to CRF data, as for example, it is generally not practical to raise data queries. Patient diaries may be developed in either paper or electronic formats, such as e-diaries. Generally take the form of handheld device which enables the subject to enter the required data and transmit this data to a centralized server.